What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Along with the Winter Wonderland update, we also got a bunch of buffs and nerfs, and some of these are going to have a massive impact on the game. Couple quick things to get to before the balance changes. First, Bob now is completely golden if you have Ash's golden weapon equipped. So that's pretty cool. Next is that if you get any of the Overwatch League skins, you also get the away skin now with it. So this is the Seoul Dynasty one, and then the away skin, and it says unlocking includes both home and away skins. But probably the most important thing in this entire patch has to do with Brigitte's victory pose. So the toast, you see she has a cat for the mug. However, if you turn it around and you look on the back, there's a jetpack. Jetpack cat confirmed. Moving on to hero balance changes, we're going to start with Bastion. Ammo increased from 25 to 35. Configuration Sentry. Weapon spread decreased by up to 33% while firing. And dev comments, Bastion could use a little bit of an offensive boost to balance out how vulnerable Configuration Recon's bulky size and Sentry's stationary nature make it. As a reward for surviving in spite of these weaknesses, we gave Bastion a lower spread in Sentry mode to make it more effective at farther ranges than it was previously. Both of these changes are buffs, but it's not going to fix any of the problems that Bastion has. He's still going to be garbage in 99% of the situations, but now he's going to be even better in pirate ship and some of those other extreme bunker type situations, which is going to make it more difficult and more frustrating for the lower bracket players to deal with. Now, the upper bracket players are going to be able to make use of this, and it is going to be a little bit more effective, but again, it's only going to be more effective in pirate ship type stuff. So, for the most part, these changes mean absolutely nothing. They're just going to make him even more of a niche character. And while some people think that it's a good idea to have niche characters, since it takes Blizzard about 9 months to make every hero, I think it's a massive waste of time and effort and energy to have a single hero that shows up once every 200 or 300 matches. That just seems like a waste of time to me. Next up is Brigitte. She got some massive nerfs, but it's not going to do what people think it's going to do. Shield Bash no longer can travel or stun targets through barriers, damage reduced from 50 to 5, Inspire cooldown reduced from 1.5 to 1 second, duration increased from 5 to 6 seconds, and total healing increased from 80 to 100. Developer comments, Brigitte Shield Bash is a strong ability that often feels difficult to counter. The change will offer new options for counterplay, enabling shield tanks to better protect themselves and their teammates. Reducing its damage reduces her total stun combo damage potential, while still allowing Whipshot and her basic melee attack to retain their full strength. Brigitte is a tank-healer hybrid, and lately we've been reducing her effectiveness by lowering the power of her non-healing functionality. We want to make sure it's still a viable pick, so increasing the uptime of her Inspire passive to help improve her overall healing output. There's a lot to unpack here. Some of it's obvious, some of it's not so obvious. The Shield Bash no longer going through barriers means that it's a huge buff to enemy Reinhardts. They're going to be able to just stand there with their barrier up, and you now have to destroy the barrier in the vast majority of the situations in order to get to the Reinhardt or his teammates behind him. Some people incorrectly think that this is a nerf to goats or triple tank, triple support. It's not, because what this is going to do, yes, your Brigitte in the triple-triple can no longer shield bash the enemy, but it means that the enemy can no longer shield bash your Reinhardt either. This is overall a net buff for GOAT's comp in general, even though it's a nerf to Brigitte herself. Because now, when you're running that GOAT's comp, when you have your whole team grouped up and you rush in to the enemy group, they're not going to be able to stun your Reinhardt anymore. They can't do anything about him because your whole team is just going to swarm onto them, and before they can even break his barrier, they're just going to be completely destroyed. So this is a net buff to GOATs, because one of the major counters to GOATs, i.e. bashing that Reinhardt and then just destroying him or someone behind him, that is no longer available. So those 2-2-2 lineups that were trying to do that are now going to be less effective. Something that's going to have a much bigger impact on the game as a whole is that damage on the shield bash being reduced from 50 to 5. This means you're going to see way more Tracer players coming back out of the woodwork, because Brigitte was a hard counter to Tracer, but she's not anymore. In fact, I would say she's not even a soft counter to Tracer. I would say at this point, Tracer and Brigitte are probably a neutral matchup, or depending on what rank you are, if you're in the upper brackets, Tracer is actually going to have an advantage over Brigitte now because of this change. And you might think, well, oh, you can still stun, but there's nothing good enough to follow up. With McCree, when you stun that Tracer, you can instantly kill her, and that's what was so good about it. With the old combo for Brigitte, it was the same thing. You would shield bash, melee, and then whip shot, and that was it. Tracer was just toast. But now, you're not going to do enough damage, and Tracer can simply blink or recall away. Now, you might think, oh, well, you have teammates that can help you. The shield bash doesn't last long enough. It's only a second. So unless your teammates are looking directly at Tracer when she gets stunned, they're not going to be able to immediately follow up with that damage like you could by yourself before. And on top of that, Tracer is usually in the back line, kind of messing with the supports. So most of your team is going to be looking forward at the enemy team, and the Tracer is going to be behind you. So your team is just, you're not going to have enough time for your teammates to turn around and do something to the Tracer in that 1 second that she's stunned. This is going to be a massive change in the dynamic of the game. You're going to see way more Tracers being played because of this. As far as the Inspire passive, this is an empty buff. It doesn't do anything. It looks really nice. Oh, they lowered the cooldown, they increased the duration, they increased the total healing, but it doesn't matter because you're going to be constantly refreshing it. So it doesn't matter if it's 5 seconds, 6 seconds, or 70 seconds. It doesn't matter because when you refresh it after 2 or 3 seconds, who cares how long the duration is? And the same thing with the total healing increased. That extra healing comes from the extra duration, and because you're constantly refreshing it, it doesn't do anything. So this looks nice, but it's an empty buff. And anyone who's telling you that this is an amazing or a great buff for Brigitte's healing, they just don't know what they're talking about. You probably shouldn't be listening to them in the first place. Moving on to Doomfist, he got a ton of nerfs. Rising Uppercut, loss of air control duration lowered from 3 seconds down to 0.6 seconds. Seismic Slam, the max range was reduced from 20 meters to 15 meters. Targets no longer lose any air control while being pulled in. Meteor Strike, the inner ring damage radius was increased from 1.5 meters to 2 meters. This was bugged on the PTR. I don't know if they actually fixed it or not. And the outer ring maximum damage decreased from 300 to 200. These are some massive hero-destroying nerfs. And the funny thing is, Doomfist has been garbage for pretty much the entire time he's been in the game, except just recently, where he started to get used a little bit more, and he was also being used to counter goats, but now they're nerfing him, and they're indirectly buffing goats at the same time, which is going to make it even more problematic. But some of these changes I kind of agree with, like giving the opponent a little bit more air control, but the max range reduction on Seismic Slam doesn't make sense. It completely destroys a lot of his rollouts, a lot of his mobility, and I know people complain about the character, but Doomfist is extremely high risk, high reward. These changes reduce Doomfist to pretty much just a throw pick. Next up is McCree. His alternate fire, the Fan the Hammer, damage was increased from 45 to 55 per hit. There's not really too much to talk about on this. This is just a massive damage increase for McCree close range. Now, it's not going to matter on any target that has 250 health or less. This only affects tanks and barriers. So it's going to make him a little bit better at dealing with those things, but for everybody else, it's pretty much not a change. Does this mean McCree is going to be played more often? It depends. If Goats is still around, then no, he's not going to be played. But if it changes into something else, there's going to be a lot more Tracer players because of the Brigitte nerfs, and because there's a lot more Tracer, you'll probably see a lot more McCree in order to deal with it. But if it's Goats, no, he's still not going to be there. Next up is Torbjorn. His Molten Core ultimate damage increased from 130 to 160 per second. This is the base damage. You still have that extra bonus armor damage as well. I don't really understand this change though, because Molten Core is the single best area control and anti-stalling ability in the entire game. No one has ever complained about it not dealing enough damage. There is an issue where the first tick of damage you take only does 2 damage. It's a bug. I've reported it on the forums numerous times. Blizzard just doesn't seem to want to do anything about it. But the damage is not an issue at all. Torbjorn is still on the very low end for pick rate. I think maybe some of the old throw pick stigma is still there. I think this current version of Torbjorn still needs a little bit of extra something in order to make him more viable, but this bonus I mean, whatever, it's a buff to his ult. He doesn't need it. It's not going to change anything, but okay, I guess. So there's all the balance changes. Quick summary, the Bastion changes aren't going to do anything. Brigitte did get quite a significant nerf as an individual, but Goat's comp is actually going to get better. Also, Doomfist got incredibly bad nerfs, and because of that, again, Goat's comp is going to get even better. And McCree got some changes. It's going to make him a little bit better, but it's probably not going to change too much because he may not be used all that often. And then the Torbjorn change, I mean, okay, I guess, whatever. So Goats is still going to be here, and it's probably going to be here for quite a while. But none of that even matters because Jetpack Cat confirmed. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.